folks, Annie from Mountain Crest Gardens here, and I have the distinct pleasure of being with Cassidy Tuttle of Succulents and Sunshine, one of my favorite succulent blogs, actually. Yes, it's real good. And we are hanging out with some real spiky boys today. We're going to be talking about the Euphorbias and the Cactus. How are they similar, why people mix them up so often, and what's different about them as well, how to tell them apart. And if you're down for it, we can do a little Quizlet and see if you can spot the difference between a couple.
That'd be fun.
Great, let's get into it.
So we have a bunch of Euphorbia and Cactus here, and I mean, you can definitely see the differences, so it's not surprising that people get them mixed up. What are some of the common things that you see, common reasons why these are actually confused for each other?
Yeah. Well, I think we can start with the big picture, right? Just form-wise, these are two of our upright columnar succulents, right?
Yes.
The things that you can have a lot of tall ones, they can be branching. So just starting there, I think, they're not a rosette.
Yes, definitely true.
Other stuff, they're obviously spiky. They're the two kind of the spikiest succulents that have, thorns or spines to them. And then the ribs. So this one here is a Euphorbia, and you can see those nice ribs coming down it, but that's something that's typical of a lot of the columnar cactus. If we could look under the wool of this one here, we would see a similar thing going on, kind of bumpy ribbed look to it.
Yeah, and you definitely have a lot of waviness in a lot of these as well.
Yeah. And looking at this one here, I kind of get vibes of the Medusa Euphorbias that have that radial symmetry to them.
Definitely, and some of the bumps in the middle that look a lot like the Medusa head.
For sure. So yeah, it's not hard to do. And when you see pictures of them in the wild, that's where I get tripped up most, I think, of telling the difference between some of these really rough-looking mature specimens.
Definitely. So obviously they have some similarities, but how are they actually different? What makes maybe the thorns on this one, why are they different than here?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. And people do tell them apart, so it is possible. There are things that are distinct between the two. And the big thing I think to think about is that Euphorbia, they're very diverse, but that's a genus. It's a small subcategory, whereas cactus, that's a whole family of plants. So you can have these Gymnocalycium cacti, a Stenocereus and Orocereus, but all of these are Euphorbia species.
That totally makes sense.
The other really big thing that defines the genus of Euphorbia is the flowers. Euphorbia is a really diverse genus. We have lots of different forms and they can look very different, but they all have this really distinctive flower that you don't find anywhere else in the plant world. It's like a very simplified flower. And it's got, very basic parts to it. And I think we've got a couple flowers on this one we can look at.
Yeah.
What looks like petals on the outside is actually more like a colored leaf to it.
Interesting.
Whereas a cactus flower,
yes,
you're
large, beautiful, rose-like.
So if I'm looking at a spiky plant and I see a really showy flower on it, probably a cactus. If it's a very basic 3-petaled deal, might be a Euphorbia.
Awesome.
You mentioned spines.
Yes.
So this is another little botanical terminology thing. There's spines and thorns are the two words we use.
Interesting. So how do you tell them apart?
Yeah, so our cacti over here have spines, and that's leaf tissue actually. So it's distinct from the stem that they're coming out of, and they're coming out of a little circle called an areole. Whereas our thorns are like what a rose has. They're stem tissue, they're coming straight out of that stem and they're made of the same tissue, the same material.
Okay, so that makes sense. So on this one, he's got little fuzzies right around where the spines are coming out, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it's just coming straight out of the tissue. There's not anything surrounding it.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
That's a good point. A lot of them are a little bit white or fuzzy looking on the cacti. Most cacti don't have leaves, and there's a lot of Euphorbia that don't have leaves either. And they're just a stem this one even has little leaflets on top too.
Yeah, and then you've got maybe a tiny bit on the Sticks on Fire, definitely on this guy.
Yeah.
A lot of leaves.
Yeah, and these ones look like normal broadleafs on a regular old shrub. They're pretty thin, not like a succulent leaf.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I use. If I do see leaves on one of these, I'm most likely a Euphorbia. and these ones are mostly just going to be a stem.
Okay.
Yeah. Last thing we should talk about is the sap inside them. You're probably pretty familiar with this.
Very much so. We have one of these in the front of our house, and my kids know you don't touch it.
Yeah.
You don't get by it because we don't want to get any of that sap on us if it breaks.
For sure. It's this milky white latex sap that can really irritate your skin. Definitely don't want it in your eyes or your mouth.
And interestingly, it's actually really hard to wash off, even with soap and water. So I've seen that a couple times where people will get it on their hands, they'll wash their hands, and then later, most people are touching their eyes or face and they're still finding they get irritated. Wow. So when you do wash it, use a strong soap or wash your hands multiple times so that it's not left any residue on your hands.
Jeez, all right. And that's kind of through most parts of the plant, right? If any little thorn breaks off, you'll start to see it.
Yep.
A little bubble coming out.
Yeah, even taking, if you were to take one of these little guys and pull them off, you'll still notice a little white blob coming off of it.
All right. Okay, time for a little Quizlet.
Yes.
Yeah. I picked out a number of pictures of cactus and euphorbia. I think some of them they're pretty similar and hard to tell the difference. So I'm excited to see how you do. You're a succulent expert, I'm not worried.
We'll see.
All right.
It's gonna be good.
Here we go. All right, first up.
So this one I'm seeing it has some little things that might look like the aerial that you were talking about on the cactus, but I'm pretty confident that one is a euphorbia because the way the spines come out, or rather the thorns are coming out, looks definitely more like a euphorbia. And then also the shape. There's something about the shape of it and kind of the texture of the skin that looks more like a traditional euphorbia.
Nice. And is there anything that helps you know the difference between an aerial, like a cactus spine coming out, versus just a little circle on a euphorbia?
There's not as much of an aerial on it. It looks more like skin, I guess, than some of the aerials on the cactus, where they look a little more soft or fuzzy.
Okay, so your final answer?
Final answer, euphorbia.
Ding, ding, ding. This is Euphorbia resinifera. And that blue color you can also for sure find in a lot of cacti. But I completely agree, that kind of four ribs is very quadrangular. I don't know what the word would be, but.
Yeah, I don't know if this is actually the case, but also there's a lot more horizontal lines in it. And that's something I've noticed with euphorbias. They tend to have more lines that are horizontal, whereas the cactus tend to just have the ribbed shapes to them.
Yeah. Do you mean these little swoopy bits in there?
Mm-hmm, where it's kind of coming in together and it almost comes off of the thorns. Where the thorns are, then it comes together.
Yeah.
A little rib that way.
Absolutely. Could agree on that one. Great. Okay. So next up.
Oh, this one I know.
Yeah.
It's tricky because it's crested.
There's something weird going on.
Yes, so you have those white ridges along it, which is where the aerials have now all combined, and it's crested.
Yeah.
And then the spines are coming off of it, and there's a lot of them. I don't know if that actually makes it a cactus, but that's what it registered in my head. And then, yeah, they're also thinner, and then you have kind of that white fuzzy spot too. Yeah. So this one would definitely be a cactus.
Totally right. Yeah, this is the Cereus peruvianus, but these monstrous and cristate ones, I feel like it can make it a little more tricky, but you nailed it. Yeah, those spines spines are so thin on it. Okay, cool.
So this one has flowers, so that's one of the things that we talked about. While these don't seem like they're fully bloomed, this is definitely a cactus flower where it's a lot more showy, it's bigger, and then again you have kind of those fuzzy aerials and more of a cactus kind of texture to it.
Yeah.
I believe, is that an astrophytum or something along that?
It is.
I love the bumpiness and roughness of those. It's really cool.
And I don't know if this is what you're talking about on the first one there, with the swoopies, but this is one of the cacti where I do see that kind of pattern on it coming down.
Definitely.
Yeah, but not euphorbia, it is a cactus. Next up, a classic.
Yes. So this is the ultimate confusing euphorbia.
It is.
It has, even looking at that compared to the astrophytum that we just saw, it has that same kind of bumpy texture. It's rough. And the place where the thorns would come out, they look more like the aerials on the cactus.
Yeah.
And I can't quite pinpoint why exactly it is a euphorbia other than I know this one's a euphorbia. But I do think that the aerials are not quite as distinct on these because they're not aerials. But, and then when you do see the spines come out, the way that they attach to the stem of the euphorbia is just a lot more distinct than a cactus spine coming out.
Well, you did not fall for my trap because these two have a lot in common, obviously.
Yeah, and this one has really distinct ridges again, like going horizontal.
Yeah.
But yeah, more noticeable than the astrophytum, but they definitely have some similar texture going on.
And the flowers on this one actually male or female, so you can have a male plant or a female plant.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not all euphorbias are like that, but this one is a little baseball plant.
Yes. This is also, in my mind, a very traditional euphorbia.
Yeah.
And you'll see it a lot in like Southern California and big masses of it. But this is one where it has those leaves, right, along the edge rather than spines, and a really smooth texture. And yeah, so the leaves I think definitely give this one away, being a euphorbia instead of a cactus.
Absolutely. Nailed it. This is Euphorbia ingens, which is, yeah, like you said, incredibly common just out in Southern California.
Yeah. This might be the first one that stumps me.
What?
But I'm pretty sure it is a cactus. I just realized this is the moon cactus stalk, right? This is one that they commonly put the, the colorful ball on top of. So this one, the spines are what ultimately give it away for me. There's a bunch of them, they're all in that aerial, and has, again, a little bit more white. It doesn't have that fuzzy that sometimes gives it away with the cactus though. But the spines in the end are what gives it away to me is the cactus.
Yeah, I love it. And once you've seen enough, like spines versus thorns, that's where it kind of, that's what clicks for you.
That's something I think too, just the more you look at them, the easier it is to know, okay, this is one versus the other. We had talked about how I have a hard time sometimes putting into words why one is one and not the other, but usually I can say it just looks like a euphorbia, it just looks like a cactus, but it just comes from looking at a lot of them that are properly ID'd and then kind of noticing distinguishing features.
I love it. And I completely agree. Like with so much plant ID, I call it like your lizard brain. Like you don't always know how to put it into words, but there's just something that like, Euphorbia.
Yep, definitely. But yeah, that was a good tricky one.
Yeah, so this is Hylocereus.
Yes.
And it's got these really distinct segments, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't feel like I see distinct segments like that in Euphorbia. Can you think of any?
I think Euphorbia do have a lot of like pupping, I guess, or chicks, so you do get a lot of weird kind of arms, but not so much like this. I feel like the cactus do tend to have more segments like that.
Nailed it.
This is a good one too.
Is this a tricky one?
This is a tricky one. I honestly don't know. So I'm looking, so if we go back to all the things that we've talked about, this seems more like a leaf, but I'm starting to wonder if it's a fruit that's actually coming off the edge there.
Oh, yeah, it has that look.
And it looks more like an epiphyte, right? Where they grow on other plants and take more water in from what's around them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Euphorbia.
Oh, I think this one is challenging because of the picture. Like if you saw it in real life, there are more clues that like, you're right, it's an epiphyte, it's growing just like hanging off into the air.
Yep.
This is weirdly one of the epiphytic cacti.
Yes.
This is a pseudo-Rhipsalis. And not everyone thinks about Rhipsalis as cacti, but they are, and this is a similarly related genus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I should have known.
So it's one of the more spineless cactus. Yeah. And these are little fruits coming off on the side there. But yeah, that's part of the stem. And it's this weird flat ribbon.
You did it. Success. You
okay, well that was a curveball one that doesn't look like a cactus or a euphorbia, really.
I love it.
Getting into bigger ones.
Yes. So the dead giveaway for me on this one is absolutely the flowers.
Yes.
Right? This is also very commonly seen in Arizona, where I currently live.
Oh,
so
nice.
You see a lot of these out and about in people's yards, or probably not so much in the wild, but there's a few of them. So that one I'm definitely going with cactus.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a serious, another columnar cactus to compare with.
Yes. So this one is a Euphorbia, and this is one of those where I'm like, I have a hard time saying exactly why, but the little black pieces right along the edge They don't look like an aerial.
Yeah.
That's more where it has that euphorbia look to it, where it's just kind of a highlight right along the edge of them. But it does also look very similar to like the Mexican fence post cactus. So at first glance, I would definitely say those are very easily confused. But in the end, I'm going with euphorbia.
Yeah, totally right. And I think that's a good call, that often they are those little black, very tidy dots up the edge where the thorns are coming out.
Yeah.
I think this one is from Morocco. Oh, the Canary Islands. This is Euphorbia canariensis. Growing in the wild.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
The final one.
Yes.
Well,
Ooh, I'm gonna go with euphorbia on this one.
Yeah.
It has nothing, I mean, it has, so I'm thinking the red is not actually flowers, it's still the leaf tissue that's just changed colors. But a cactus does not have any sort of tissue that looks like a real leaf.
yeah. This is a poinsettia, and not everyone realizes they're euphorbias.
Yeah, I did not know that, which is really interesting.
I think it's
That's
really,
awesome.
and you point this out exactly, that these red parts that we sort of think of as the poinsettia flower, that's like, it's more like a leaf, the sepals beneath the tiny little simple flower in the middle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I learned something new.
Curveball on the little poinsettia there.
Yes.
So nicely done though. I'm
Thank
very
you.
impressed.
That was a good quiz, good test.
Your lizard brain is like fully well experienced looking at succulents.
Perfect. So I have one more that I want to ask you about, or two more, really.
Ooh.
So these definitely look like euphorbias, right? You've got the leaves, you've got the spines, but they're not euphorbia, correct?
Right. Oh, I'm so glad you brought these out, because this is, it's tricky. These trip me up. I think a lot of people could look at this and see euphorbia with the like woody, toothpicky thorns on it.
Yeah, and even if you go so far as to like break off the thorns, you still have that sap inside too. So it has all of those things pretty much that we talked about with euphorbias. And like looking at pictures of the flowers of these, they're more similar. They're kind of an in-between, I guess, between a euphorbia flower and a cactus flower. Just kind of a little bit of both. So this is one that to me just comes down to, we just know that they're Pachypodiums, and that's just what they are. And there's not necessarily a great way to distinguish them other than just being familiar with those particular varieties.
Absolutely. And Pachypodiums look so close to euphorbia to me that I thought maybe they're in the same family. They're not. Yeah. They're not even that closely related. So it was like convergent evolution where they both like reached this kind of appearance and form, but they're not really that closely related.
Yeah, and that's to me where like I love knowing the names of my plants, but sometimes it comes down to you're gonna kind of care for them the same way you would most succulents, although these will have and some euphorbias will too, but they will have like a severe dormancy where they shed leaves and they start to look a little sad. But again, that comes down to you just happen to know the name of this particular one.
Yeah. I think it's a great one to end on, of like sometimes it's just hard to tell, even for an expert.
Definitely. But that was a good like run through, and the quiz was surprisingly harder than I thought. So good to kind of experience that and be able to pinpoint more. This is a cactus versus this is euphorbia.
Absolutely. Cassidy, thank you so much for joining me today. That was really fun to look at these kind of similar plants together.
Yeah, that was really fun. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You can find a ton more from Cassidy over at the links in the description. And I hope this was helpful to you. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more juicy succulent content like this. And until next time, happy succulenting.